Okay, the Supreme Court. Big win for Trump. They lift another country. This is the third country where they were putting deportation limits on them so Trump couldn't deport them without due process and all that. And Trump gets a win at the Supreme Court. We're going to go into all that. And the Democrats' illegal and awful response that shows they're into anarchy. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Shout out to my quad club in the chat. Whole lot of fun going on outside of the war. We're going to address the Iran-Israel thing, but I thought I'd hit the Supreme Courts because this is long-lasting, permanent, and bigger part of the Trump agenda, even though it's not quite as, as loud as talking about war. Let's get to it. Oh, and P.S., don't forget to subscribe, but thank you guys for watching. Here we go at the Hill. Supreme Court lifts third country deportation limits. Liberals pen a scathing dissent. The Supreme Court on Monday lifted judge-imposed limits on the Trump administration's deportations to countries where migrants have no ties over a scathing dissent from the court's liberal justices. You can just ignore them. They're in the minority. Those liberal justices, it's their job to write a scathing dissent. The administration warned U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy's injunction. Let's look at Brian Murphy here. Trump administration injunction was endangering immigration officials stuck in Djibouti. Remember, they were on a plane and they had to stay with the deported criminals, and it was dangerous to them. Guarding a group of convicted criminals who were destined for South Sudan until Murphy blocked the flight. The majority did not explain its reasoning to lift the ruling in a 19-page dissent. 19 pages, ooh. The three liberal justices, so Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, said their colleagues were, quote, rewarding lawlessness. Clarence Thomas probably said, I'll be the judge of that, literally. Apparently, the court finds the idea that thousands will suffer violence in far-flung locales more palatable than the remote possibility that a district court exceeded its remedial powers when it ordered the government to provide notice and process to which the plaintiffs are constitutionally and statutorily entitled. Justice Sonia Sotomayor word saladed in her opinion. This is another thing, man. These ladies, I think Kagan is coming up here, but she's actually smarter. I think Sotomayor, you have to actually be really intelligent to make things readable and discernible. You don't find this kind of goofed up mixed language in Alito and Thomas's opinions. Very simple, made to be understood, very easy. This stuff's chopped salad. Let's see what Kagan says. Quote, the use of discretion is as incomprehensible as it is inexcusable. She continued, okay, there's no rationale to that. That's just name calling. She has unpacked nothing for you. Joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. The case will now return to an appeals court, and it could ultimately return to the justices on their normal docket. Here's Sotomayor again. Oh man, this is going to be bad. Remember, she did 19 pages of this, guys. Quote, rather than allowing our lower court colleagues to manage this high-stakes litigation with the care and attention it plainly requires, this court is now intervenes to grant the government emergency relief from an order it has repeatedly defied. Sotomayor lamented. Keep lamenting. Maybe read the book of Lamentations in the Bible, Sotomayor. You know what the Bible is? Well, you may not own one yet. I'll send you a free copy. They're in your hotel, in the little drawer there in your hotel. As part of its broader immigration crackdown, the Trump administration has looked to third country removals, a process by which authorities deport a migrant to a country other than the one on their deportation order issued by an immigration judge. So this is like taking illegals, say, from Venezuela and sending them to an El Salvador prison. So that's the third country. First country is the country where they're from, and then the country that they went to, us, and then the third country involved is the one that is neither us nor the country where they came from, where we're sending them to go to prison or to be held. It's similar to sending them to Gitmo, in the terrorist days. The administration insists it is acting lawfully and is conducting the deportations to more easily remove violent criminals. Represented by immigration legal groups, several anonymous non-citizens sued over claims that the administration's actions violate multiple federal laws and their constitutional due process rights. As illegal aliens, they want their due process rights. And this does go to a larger political theory, just to let you in on this. Is the Constitution just for American citizens? It's not implied in its own wording. We hold these things to be self-evident that all men are created equal. That is slavery that might be legal in another country. We're saying that it shouldn't be legal there, that these rights are self-evident and attached to every human being. Doesn't mean we have to give them due process when they come here, but is due process due to every human being? Not when you're invaded, okay? If you have 11 million people invade you, you do not have an obligation. Just common sense would tell you that. Maybe common sense is wrong. Maybe the Constitution is wrong. Murphy, an appointee of former President Biden, we knew he was Murphy, this judge that blocked Trump, was some kind of appointee of some Marxist who serves in Boston, the worst place in the world. Good place for chowder, full of rich white elites. In April, agreed to their request for a nationwide injunction blocking the deportations unless the administration gives the migrants sufficient ability to raise claims they will face torture they could face torture in the third country. Again, that is bad news for them. Here's Devery Darkins on the subject. This is when it first broke. This is, I think he posted this 16 hours ago. I'm just going to grab this clip real quick.
The Supreme Court has weighed in on a significant part of the president's immigration and deportation policy. CNN's chief legal affairs correspondent Paula Reed joins us now with more. Paula, we understand this decision relates to the administration's attempts to deport people to countries other than the country that they are from. What are we learning?
That's exactly right, Casey. A significant win for the Trump administration. Here, the high court allowing them to resume deporting migrants to countries other than their homeland. And we're talking about some sort of turmoil-ridden countries like South Sudan, because a lower court judge had ruled that the Department of Homeland Security had to provide migrants written notice about where they were going and give them an opportunity to challenge that deportation on the ground that they could face torture
or other adversity. Okay, this is good news for Trump because this is going to allow him to better implement his deportation policies. This is a big Democrat plan, huge, where they go, look, we lost an election. We don't have majorities. What can we do? We don't have the Supreme Court majority. So we're going to go to our 670 lower courts and have them become president, have more power than the president, and stop the president's executive orders, because they're not laws yet. So they're going to go in and gum it up. That was their big plan, to try to stop Trump. It's not just from sending off illegal criminals, but to keep them from sending off anyone was their goal, to shut down the Trump agenda that we all voted for. So this is a pretty big overall win. This is not the first case of this type. There's many more cases coming where the Supreme Court, I think, John Roberts realizes we can't have this precedent be set by these lower courts allowing them to go over the president, or it really is going to come back to the Supreme Court. And then we're going to have to actually create law or create a new understanding saying that lower judges can't stop the president. But they're getting the message. These cases, they start establishing a precedent for Trump. It proves Trump is more close to the law, more correct with the Supreme Court and the Constitution, which is what their opinion's rooted in, than the Democrats are. 670 Democrat lower courts are less constitutional. We're going to get some Stephen Miller in there just because we love him, all right? This is Stephen Miller replying to Mike Davis, who's our other guy we love over on Twitter. A district judge has just announced he will openly defy the unambiguous ruling issued today by the Supreme Court. So that's based on what the court said. He is going to defy it. That's Democrats, guys. The Democrats do not believe in the rule of law. They're now undermining the ruling of the highest court in the land. And he will continue to block the expulsion of illegal aliens convicted of crimes and murder. It's a judicial coup. President of the chess club right here. This guy looks like my certified public accountant. right here. The left-wing radical Biden judge got jammed through the Senate in December. So this is what Biden did last year while they still had a narrow majority in the lame duck session after Democrats lost the White House and Senate. So this is a radical Biden ran through during Christmas time in recession, in the lame duck session. 6 months into the job, Massachusetts U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy is now openly defying a Supreme Court order. Mike Davis's suggestion, impeach him. And I think we could see some of that coming from, led by Stephen Miller. Now here's our buddy Sean Davis. He was very much against any Trump's involvement in pushing back on Iran, but we still love him. He's a very dear friend of mine. He just happens to be wrong on that issue. A federal judge just issued an order explicitly and blatantly ignoring the Supreme Court ruling today, allowing deportations to continue, claiming without evidence the Supreme Court ruling is irrelevant to the case because the issue wasn't properly before the Supreme Court. That's Sean Davis of The Federalist, which we love also. If you guys do not get your news from The Federalist, you're missing out. Here's Margot Cleveland. Holy crap. Judge sidesteps SCOTUS. Here's Judge Brian E. Murphy. Electronic order entered on plaintiff's emergency motion to enforce judgment. Plaintiff's emergency motion. It is denied as unnecessary, subject to the below. Okay, this is what the actual official documents look like. Here's more Stephen Miller.
Yes, this is an incredible victory, the Supreme Court win. It allows President Trump, as the law has long said, but the courts have blocked, it allows President Trump to send illegal aliens convicted of rape, murder, homicide, assault, battery, crimes against children to any country around the world that is willing to accept them. So whether that be South Sudan, or whether it be Somalia, or whether it be Ethiopia, any country in the world that is...
Basically, we can send them to a hellhole. And they'll start thinking twice about the offer that we gave them of self-deportation, man. Why in the world would you risk it if you're an illegal criminal? Dude, take the self-deportation deal.
Willing to accept these monsters, we can get them out of our country and be free of them forever. The only thing I have to share tonight, Sean, in a little bit of breaking news, is that the district court judge in Boston has said he's going to defy the Supreme Court's ruling. So expect fireworks tomorrow when we hold this judge accountable for refusing to obey the Supreme Court.
So that fireworks is today, and I believe they're going to begin impeachment proceedings on that judge, which would be another great precedent to have and fun. Just to laugh at him. Hopefully he'll lose that appointment. And then finally, I'm going to end here on Mike Davis, just with one last little brush up here. Illegal aliens pretend they're persecuted back in their home countries. You know, that's why they're here. So the Trump administration sends them to another country. Adios, he says. An activist judge tried to block this. The Supreme Court just sided with the Trump administration again. Adios. Here's the official Supreme Court document. Supreme Court of the United States versus Department of Homeland Security on application for stay. This application for stay presented to Justice Jackson by her referred to the court is granted. Okay, that's just the official documents I wanted to show you guys. So as this develops, this is a huge win for Trump, huge precedent for Trump, really big picture stuff on protecting his ability to deport illegals. That's what this is all about. And that's why all of these activist Democrat judges are trying to keep Trump from deporting illegals because they want to keep their little voters. They want to make them citizens, get them voting, get them just sucking and destroying all of our systems of welfare, Medicare, food stamps, get them voting, get them become citizens to get them to vote Democrat forever because Democrat ideas are so bad. No one in their right mind would ever vote for them. We never put an X next to a Democrat. Thank you all for watching. More videos to come. I'm Doug in Exile.